as part of their teams sitting in the middle seat here playing Modern. We have, uh, let's see, make sure we're okay. It looks like the seats may have been a little different than we thought, but it looks like we might have, if our graphic is right, at least Fletcher Johnson on the left here with five color Omnath, Adam Washburn on the right with Amulet Titan. We will verify that we have the names right and the seats right, but we are off and running here in the round, and things get started off with the classic Arboreal Grazer, Urza's Saga over on the
Yeah, I
right side.
believe I believe the team names are correct because I know it's very very strange sometimes with melee melee and teams. It's very weird because if you click on it only shows one of the players
Yeah.
in melee, so you have to click on the name to expand the whole team. But yeah, we have Fletcher Johnson on five color Omnath and Adam Washburn Moses on Amulet Titan. Like you said, we see turn one Grazer for Saga here. And this matchup is really all about Solitude. I think that maybe is one of the most important cards from Fletcher's side of things. There are four copies in here, and another big one is Elishnorn. You know, the question is,
Hmm.
Can Fletcher stave off enough of this early pressure to get Elishnorn into play? Because I mean, looking at the deck list for Adam here, I mean, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing an outtake a game one Elishnorn, and that one can stop basically everything, right? Valakut triggers, Primeval Titan triggers, so that could be something that Adam is definitely looking towards.
Yeah, that is one of the key. There's definitely a few key ways. You're right for the Omnath deck to interact. That said, if you are the Amulet player, you always have the option of just going faster, of outracing anything but Solitude, right? Of trying to get ahead of Omnath and it's sort of progressing its own game plan. And this is a pretty good way to do it. Your Saga ticks up to 2. You throw down a Dryad of the Elysian Grove, so you can play another land, which is a second Saga. So lots of different paths moving forward here for Adam.
Yeah, this is about as good as it gets for the Amulet player. And the one thing that I will mention is the sagas are on two different chapters. So
Hmm.
the next turn, the first one is going to go to chapter 3. That will almost certainly go ahead and pick up a copy of Amulet of Vigor, and the second one's going to be delayed a bit. And as a matter of fact, the first one's going to be delayed a bit as well, as we see Teferi go ahead and kind of sort of stone rain Adam here, make him pick up that saga. And that is it buys Fletcher a good amount of time. It's not, you know, it's not the game breaking. It's going to end the game on the spot. But if we see a Solitude take care of a Dread as well, that will also protect the Teferi. Very good sequence here for Fletcher as we try to, you know, like I said, Fletcher just really wants to stave off not dying on turn 3 or turn 4 and really
Hmm.
get to that Elishnorn.
Yeah, look, this is what the Omnath deck wants to do, right? Just kind of plays out its spells, makes its land drops. Eventually, bigger things come down, but it does it very, it progresses its own game plan while controlling, to an extent, at least the most damaging threats. And that's why you see Adam here has not been able to go
Okay.
completely wild, but does throw down and explore, so you can explore two Urza Saga.
Yeah, one thing we didn't really discuss a little bit here, Corbin, is the
Hmm.
saga tokens. Now, typically, this is, I would say, probably like the third or fourth plan for the amulet deck. They really want to be either killing you with Primeval Titan or with Dryad Valakut triggers. But
Hmm.
three Ursa sagas, that makes a lot of constructs, and that can be a lot of pressure. And it's not clear that Fletcher can answer all of that pressure.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. You think of Amulet, right? And everyone knows, oh, Amulet Titan. They play Amulet and then they play Titan, and then you die, right? But not always. Sometimes Urza Saga just does Urza Saga powerful things, and that's pretty good in modern, it turns out. And especially in this modern, where people kind of pitch free cards out of their hand. Everyone does this flurry of resource trades in the first couple turns, and sometimes it's whatever's left over. And constructs are pretty good at being what's left over.
Yeah, I did get a glimpse of Fletcher's hand. It looks like Fletcher has a copy of the One Ring, which I would imagine is going to get deployed this turn, which will, let him draw a couple of cards, maybe find some answers to those construct tokens. Looking at the five color Omnath deck list, as far as removal is concerned, you know, the four Teferi Time Levelers that can go ahead and bounce a construct for a turn, the
Hmm.
Solitudes, and then four Leyline Binding, four Prismatic Ending, and then along with two Supreme Verdict as well. So, you know, Fletcher is, I guess, sort of well prepared for these saga tokens if they are to come down. And you would have to imagine Adam is going to go ahead and make one right now.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need to find a path to victory here. It looks like one, two, three cards in hand or so. Whereas Fletcher just kind of setting up. He's got almost everything he can want at this point. plenty of cards in hand. So the pressure is definitely, I think, on Adam at this point to sort of become the beatdown and find a way to press forward.
Yeah, and this Urza Saga is going offline. If we take a look at the deck list, the options available is, Adam is going to go ahead and grab a copy of Amulet. The only other one that could be available to grab off of Saga is the single copy of Expedition Map, which usually you only want if you want to get another Saga. But Adam's already got three Sagas, so I think we're kind of already Saga flooded at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what he does to try to get back into this one. Staring down a couple pretty powerful cards on Fletcher's side. Adam's definitely going to need to find a way out of this and get ahead. Just get something onto the board, right? Like the 0-3 and one construct is not where you want to be yet, but needs to find a way to get ahead. So if you are Fletcher, though, things seem to be going pretty well for you, right? You've got down your early cards. You haven't died on turn 3 or 4. What is the next step in this one out? Well, I'd say that. Here we go. It probably involves
Primeval
answering
Titan.
Primeval Titan.
See, this is interesting though, because Fletcher does have protection this turn. Fletcher last turn did go ahead and cast that one rig. So,
Hmm.
this Primeval Titan's going to hit the battlefield, even if it goes, gets a little hasty and maybe there's a Dryad cast, or I'm not exactly sure how far Adam can go here, but, no matter what, Fletcher has that safety net of I cannot die this turn, which is, got to be a reassuring thing if you're Fletcher here, especially when you see this Primeval Titan come down. I think I caught a quick glimpse of Adam's hand, and I believe Adam may have drawn the Haste land, the Slayer Stronghold. So,
Hmm.
maybe wanted to go towards the Hasting the Titan, but perhaps did not have the ability to do so because he drew that Slayer Stronghold.
Yeah, and we see bounce lands involved here for Adam, but it looks like Adam is just passing the turn back. Wasn't able to, as you said, get that hasted Titan going. Wasn't able to start pulling out a million lands out of his deck. Still playing as fair as it can be, a very fair game for Amulet Titan, which has to feel good if you're Fletcher. You untap now, fan the hand. You've got a lot of cards to look at, a lot of gas to try to figure out how to deal with this. Right, your biggest constraining issue is going to be your mana with those 4 lands, and of course, whatever you have in hand. How do you both answer the Titan and then set yourself up for when Adam untaps and has access to a bunch of mana and possibly make some more constructs? That's the line that Fletcher's trying to figure out. It feels like he's got all the resources he needs. He just needs to figure out how to line them up.
Yeah, getting a glimpse of the hand, it looks like Fletcher has a Leyline Binding, a Prismatic Ending, and a Solitude. And those are all very good cards. But like you mentioned, going to
Hmm.
be a little bit gated on how much mana we can produce this turn, because those are the only white cards in hand, which means Solitude has to pitch one of those key removal spells if you want to be able to double spell here. I guess you could just go towards something like, binding the Titan, Prismatic Ending what the Amulet, and save the Solitude for next turn. But we'll have to see how Fletcher wants to go ahead. And the other thing you got to realize is
Hmm.
that those two sagas are going to represent two more amulets. So it's not even like Prismatic Ending on Amulet. Maybe Adam just doesn't care about that.
True. That's a very good point because it at some point 3 amulets, 2 amulets, it's going to be enough mana to kill you, uh, if it is. So here we go. Step one, you mentioned it. It is prismatic ending the amulet of vigor. That will at least maybe it's a little bit more difficult for Adam, and we'll see where we go to from here.
Yeah, prismatic ending normally cannot target lands, but in this rare instance, that was a legal target. And it looks like Fletcher's going to go towards the Fable here instead of deploying the lane line binding. Because to the best of my knowledge, I'm going to look at Fletcher's deck list just to confirm, but I don't believe there's a Godless Shrine. And yeah, no Godless Shrine. So that because we're missing black as
Hmm.
the we have like I think I see Temple Garden. I think it's Elegant Parlor, Island Plains, which means there's 4 types. We're missing the swamp type,
Right.
and we don't have an untapped swamp that can also cast Leyline Binding. So binding right now is off the table for Fletcher.
That's right. Yeah, very well said. That binding would have cost more mana, so instead opts to go with the fable. Uh, does still have, I think we called out a solitude, right? So maybe
Yep.
feeling like you have a card to pitch solitude. You have an opportunity here. You know that Adam's most likely about to do some stuff that's just very silly one way or another. And you have to be prepared for it. Solitude is of course a great get out of jail free card, at least for a turn for make creatures. So it's maybe what Fletcher looks to lean on here is Adam surveys the board and tries to
You want
figure
to do
out
something, Fletcher?
what to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to start with these saga triggers, I imagine. And people think this one through. But here we go. This is going to be a very big key turn here in this middle match.
Yeah, Fletcher's hand, I believe, like we said before, I think it is the Solitude, the Leyline Binding, a Wrenn and Six, and just a couple of lands. So has access to the Solitude this turn, but there's that Teleria West as well. So you have to imagine if Adam gets a couple of amulets here, can maybe generate enough mana off of the Simic Growth Chamber to be able to float some mana, pick up the Teleria West, transmute it, get a pact. And I think the issue here, so there's a couple of things to think about. One is is the one solitude even enough to stave off elimination, to stave off death
Hmm.
this turn? Because if Adam say presents three titans and you can only kill one of them, that's not
Right.
good enough. The other interesting part is last turn, and I'm pretty sure I saw this in Adam's hand. I believe he did draw the Slayer Stronghold, which means, and the other thing is Fletcher doesn't know that, right? So
Right.
Fletcher might have to play the game as if Adam still has access to that haste land in the deck. And we see the Solitude's going to take care of the Primeval Titan, presumably.
Yep. All right. Step one, take down the Titan. Step two is going to be figure out how to answer all these constructs if you're Fletcher. But uh, he does seem to live. It doesn't. If this is an attack step, then there aren't more Titans coming down this turn, which is probably about as much as you can hope for when you tap out for your Fable and try to commit to that longer game.
Yeah, we see chump block here for Fletcher, and I wonder if Adam is just going to go ahead and play that Slayer Stronghold this turn, because I think if that is the case, that's probably what's holding him back from not being able to just kill Fletcher outright this turn.
Hmm.
And yeah, there
There
it
it is.
is. There's the
Yeah.
Slayers. So next turn, Corbin. Next turn, we got some fireworks.
That's true. Assuming he has the I was checking the colors here, making sure we can activate everything. Uh, but yeah, assuming the cards in hand, that they could get. This is a really fun game to watch. Honestly, is watching Amulet Titan play a non Amulet Titan game. Although I recognize there are in fact amulets and there has been a Titan, but this is just really the power of Urza Saga kind of sticking around, trying to clean up. But of course, Fletcher is now going to hit chapter 2 on that Fable when he untaps. He's got 2 counters on the One Ring. These are very powerful cards. He's going to take some burn from the One Ring, of course, but going to have access to a lot of cards on this turn. Another One Ring might grant him protection, could find more removal. We've got, I think, a long way to go here, but this is going to be a key set of draws for Fletcher.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're sitting in Fletcher's seat, you probably assumed last turn when you said go that you were you were probably
Yeah.
dead to rights. And now that he's got another turn, it's like I don't know what to do. I thought I was going to die. So we're going to see a ring activation in response to the Fable. Very heads up play, so you can actually get the extra
Hmm.
cards that you don't want off the ring. Get rid of those for the Fable. And I believe we may have surveilled another binding to the top. So it might actually be, I think, 2 copies of Leyline Pending in hand. But again, as we've talked about, these Urza Saga has just made so many threats that it's really hard to trade one for one with these construct tokens. On
Hmm.
top of the fact that you have to answer them, and then you also have to be able to answer the Titan. So that might be a supreme verdict in hand.
Well, I was going to say, what we haven't gotten to yet is the fact that the ring damage is not irrelevant at this
Yep.
point. Fletcher's at 6 life, three has 3 counters. You mentioned responding to the Fable trigger, which is nice, of course, too, because the ring makes you pay life in your upkeep. You can still, in your main phase, which is when that saga triggers, you can activate it then without having to lose additional life to get the third card. And then pitching 2 to the Fable. That was 6 new cards plus with the draw step there for Fletcher. That said, still very, very deep in the tank. So it wasn't as clear as, okay, maybe I have another ring. I just slam the ring and think about it later. Lots for Fletcher to consider on this one.
Yeah, if that is Supreme Verdict, that's a really big pickup because you can go Supreme Verdict to clean up the tokens and then hold up Binding for a Primeval Titan. And you have to imagine it if that is what is in Fletcher's hand. That's what we're going to go for here. Getting a bit of an update on one of our back tables. It looks like Benjamin Ungar has taken game number 1 over Don Delosier. That's going to be our Pioneer seat. Is it Phoenix taking game 1 over Boris Heroic? SBC. That looks like a Supreme Verdict to me.
Yeah, and this is a fun one too because if one of the matches ended, well, the match isn't over yet, but Ben and Don finished their game next to him. Now everyone's looking over, heads over shoulders. Ooh, what do you got? What's going on? Oh my gosh, how have you not won with all those amulets yet? What's happening? Just the team events are fun, right? Like team events are so good. You're playing a fun match like this, you're deep in it, and you've got a sort of a built-in audience to watch you play. Plus, everybody here, we appreciate all of you hanging out with us on the stream on this Mother's Day here at the NRG Championship Series. We are deep into round 5 as we watch these teams sitting at 3-1 battle it out. Fletcher working through a very complicated turn here to try to answer Adam's board, but doing a dang good job of it so far.
So one thing I totally did not realize, we've just been kind of watching this game progress as the every single turn. There
Uh-huh.
was a red and 6 cast on turn 2, and that never got interacted with.
I
There
was
was
I
a
was
red
I was
emblem.
curious about that because it was kind of off the side of our screen. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure exactly if that was in place. So just plenty of land drops in, I imagine, for Fletcher.
Well, and that red emblem is massive because now you
Hmm.
can start prismatic ending all these amulets. So now, Adam passed the turn with 3 constructs, a primeval titan, and 3 amulets, and now he's taking his turn. He has no creatures in play and 1 amulet.
Yeah, this was a huge comeback by Fletcher. We talked about it. This is you tap out for that Fable. You're committing to, okay, well, I'll untap and I'll figure it out then. And if I don't untap, fair enough. You got to untap. You did figure it out. This has been an amazing comeback by Fletcher. But now Adam is still, I mean, look, Adam has access to all the same powerful things that Amulet does. And while Amulet can win with the constructs like we were seeing, it can also do broken things more or less. And that's what we're going to see Adam attempt to do here. Um, as Fletcher, I'm not sure. Do we think Fletcher's still? I can't quite spot the hand there to see if it's fully shields down or not.
I think it's a Ren and 6, a binding, and a land, I believe. Oh my goodness. Is
Okay.
this going to be lethal with our Boreal Grazer?
Oh
Oh my
wow.
god.
Oh, Arboreal Grazer attack you for 2, I believe. Past the
Yep.
turn, one
And then the
ring
ring.
trigger.
And then the ring trigger. Oh my goodness. Summoner's Pact for our Boreal Grazer for lethal. I never thought I would see it, Corbin.
Oh wow, what an incredible series if that's how it ends. Oh man. The one ring, it is a burden, is it not? Everyone said, oh, there's no drawback. There should be more drawbacks to the one ring. This is looking like a heck of a drawback right now.
Now, it's not over yet. We are in Fletcher's upkeep. The ring trigger is on the stack. Hypothetically, there
Yeah,
could be some
binding.
shenanigans where it's like Solitude. Oh, he drew a Cosmic Rebirth. So if we can get
Okay.
Cosmic Rebirth on the screen, I know a lot of people probably aren't familiar with that card. And did I just pick up the cards? Okay, Cosmic Rebirth. I'm not sure what happened there. We'll get confirmation from our spotter here. But Cosmic Rebirth is a card that returns a permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield if it's 3 or
Hmm.
less, and you gain 3 life. That ring, I believe, was on 4, and Fletcher was at 2. So do the
Yes.
quick math: 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 minus 4. Fletcher survives 0-1.
Yeah, we'll have to check and see what happened there. But if either way, watching Adam play that game, just sort of Adam just kind of gears grinding every turn, just can't quite get through. Uh, but in that case, he was able to make those constructs, send it through. But Fletcher was able to make that play, gaining the life. And you know what? Fletcher Johnson takes it down as a result of that. Untaps, and Adam says, well, you've got all these cards. You just drew another 4. If you've got it, I think you've got it. So they're going to be on to game 2, and we are on to game 2 here in the Pioneer seat, where on the left bin, Unger is taking on Don Delosier on the right on Boros Heroic. And things are getting started very quickly here. Don on the play has the Monastery Swiss Sphere as you want, and the cantripping over on the side of Ben. So here we go. Is it Phoenix, Boros Heroic in the Pioneer seat?
Yep. Just a quick note on that last game. I believe that I think Adam actually lost to the Summoner's Pact because I think Adam picked up the blue green bounce lane and just physically couldn't pay for Pact. It's just a quick update there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, these are 2 decks that I have played quite a bit in Pioneer. I played a lot with the Heroic deck, played a lot with the Phoenix deck as of late. I think this matchup is generally pretty close. It really all comes down to the protection spells and pacing your threats. Like, you don't want to just run your threat out there without protection. You kind of want to maybe bait your weaker threat first. In this case, Monastery Swift Spear being one of your weaker threats. And Slickshot Show Off is a card that we maybe haven't talked a ton about, but one that has been making waves in several formats. Most of probably the biggest of which is Pioneer, where
Yeah.
you just get to the plot. I think the really amazing aspect about this card is the plot, where you don't have to commit the threat on the turn that your opponent has mana up, and you can kind of sequence your threats in the way that you would like to. And it's
Mm-hmm.
especially good in this deck, Corbin, because this deck plays a lot of those protection spells.
Yeah, and you're seeing the power of it now. Here it comes. Big swing Yeah, this was a everyone always says, look, free spells are one of the most powerful things you can do in Magic. So plot is a really interesting mechanic because it is not exactly a free spell. You're putting mana into it, sometimes more than it costs, but the ability to play it for free and have that not even a surprise factor, but just sort of overload somebody's resources on one turn factor, like you're seeing exactly here as Dawn gets a huge swing in off of just 3 lands.
Yeah, and Ben's in this weird spot where, Ben probably has a removal spell on him, but he's like, "Do I even want to cast my removal spell into your
Yeah.
protection?" And Ben chooses to fire off the impulse, and Don's like, "All right, fine." So, is that a tell for Ben? Does that mean Dawn doesn't have protection, or does she just not want to use it there because she already has two other threats in place? So, just a lot of mind games with this Boros heroic deck versus the heavy removal spell decks.
Yeah, especially in the cyborg games where you know the Izzet Phoenix deck is just nothing but removal for you, and it's all going to be coming about sort of that key turn and key interaction rather than necessarily just a key card. But here we go. The swing comes in. It looks like that is down to 6 life for Ben, who's just considering here as a one spell in hand. We'll send that at a creature. We'll see if Don just going to send the show off to the graveyard.
Yeah, and Dawn's in a position where she's not casting any of the. I believe I saw at least a monstrous rage in her
Monstrous
hand,
Rage, yeah.
but she's figuring, okay, well, I have 4 power in play. Ben's already at 6 life. I don't have to cast any of these spells in hand. I can make Ben react
hmm
to what I have in the battlefield and play into my protection spells, and that's a really good position to be in when you're the heroic player.
Yeah, and look at this. Ben has cast. Look at Ben's graveyard. It's full. It's not full of phoenixes, but it is full. Ben has cast a lot of spells, but you see only 2 lands there. Those two old school steam vents, and a lot of cards in hand still. But at 6 life, you're going to be gated by how many creatures and cards you can answer, and it's not very many with only 2 mana of it. All right, big turn here for Dawn. Has a chance to try to even things up, and really quickly looks like here we go. Play a creature, attack with them. Your go. What do you got?
Yeah, that's the third copy of Slick Shot. Just just getting
hmm
into the red zone. Not a single trigger has happened yet, and yeah, looks like Ben said no actions, and Don's like, all right, go to two.
Yeah, look
And
at the sorry the discipline from Dawn there, right? Because we know that got cards in hand. Just play them, attack. Not going to get too excited. Just attack, make you deal with things.
yeah, and I think that part of that is because Ben has not presented any pressure. Like,
Yeah.
you can imagine this game is a lot different if Ben has one or two Phoenixes that were attacking at each of these turns, where Dawn maybe feels a little bit more pressured into going for one of her pump spells or something like that. But because Ben isn't doing anything, she's like, "All right, I'm just going to attack you with my creatures. You're eventually going to have to answer them, and that's when my protection spells are just going to kill you on the spot." Yeah, Ben. I think Ben resolved that cruise and still has not drawn the third
That's
land yet.
just
So
just a handful of lands
yeah,
and nothing to do with it.
yeah.
Or I'm sorry, a handful of spells and no lands to cast them.
Oh, he found a
Okay,
pathway. Okay.
there we go. Well, this is your mana is precious, and as powerful as Treasure Cruise, a la Ancestral Recall, and Pioneer is, when you only have 3 mana and you have cards already, I'm not sure that was only what you needed here. So we'll see. Ben looks like it was gonna start with a removal spell. We'll see where things go. All right, Slick Shot show off. Out of here.
Yeah, Don's just totally okay with that. I think the hand, Don's just revealing the hand. Like, I got you covered, Ben. I got you covered. Doesn't matter what you do. Yeah, so Ben's best play can be axe, kill one creature, discard a phoenix, leave it on defense. But Don has the monstrous rage to give it trample, which will certainly trample over for lethal over the measly 2 toughness of that Arclight Phoenix.
If your Arclight Phoenixes are blocking, it is a good strategy, but doesn't always work very well. Okay, so the monstrous rage 2 has been a really nice hold because at any point Dawn could have cast it to just get in for extra damage, right? And
Yep.
perhaps walk into a removal spell or something. And that's what Ben's hoping for to try to kind of swing parity back once you're on the draw in the matchup. But doesn't work. Very well done by Dawn, as you mentioned it. There comes the monstrous rage. That will give it the token. That will give it the pump and one attack swing. Assuming they don't miss anything here, should send us into game 3.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the monstrous rage,
Like the
trample.
roll, yeah.
Love the roll token. I gotta say those roll tokens are kind of hard to find. I had to go to a couple different
Mhm.
couple different local game stores to try and find those. But see, Anger. Look, we're gonna give them both trample. All right. If Ben's not going to concede, everything is going to have trample.
Hey, you know what, Ben? You're on camera. You've won the first game. You enjoy every minute of it. You earned it because you are 3-1. Your team right now
Love the
is in
block.
the NRG series. You're doing great. But that
Well,
one over to Don DeLozier. And look at this match. If you look across the three matches that make up this team match, things are pretty even back and forth right now. Look at that.
yeah, we are all square here. I believe I think we're going to go back to modern here for a second. Not sure what productions. We're looking at a couple of different games here where actually, you know what? Maybe we go standard a little bit. We haven't seen any standard action. We got a teamer analyst in the hands of Ben Weinberg against Cliff Boyardee playing Azorius Control. Ben up a game on the teamer analyst deck. Standard is a format that we haven't seen a ton of here. It's a format that myself I am very interested in because I am participating in the upcoming regional championship DreamHack event.
Hmm.
And I've been playing a lot of different decks. I do think that both these decks are quite good in the format. And you'll notice there's a couple of Tishana's Tidebinders. Now, if we look at Cliff's deck list, those are all in the sideboard. Game one, I think there's basically no creatures, and then kind of the idea is you kind of sort of pivot into this post board plan where you're a little bit more tempo focused and can kind of dictate the pace of the game a little bit better with those Tidebinders. On top of the fact that there's just a lot of different triggers, like there's Aftermath Analyst, Titan of Industry, Nissa, Fetch Lands. I don't know if you've ever Tidebinder one of those Capenna Sack lands, but it's a good feeling.
Playing with Stifle in 2024 is a great feeling, especially when it comes attached to a Merfolk. What's been great about Tiebinder is how many archetypes it's made. Like obviously, I'm a huge Merfolk fan, so I've casted a fair amount and enjoyed it. But it gets you out of everything. And these blue-white control decks, it doesn't just counter. The Stifle these days not only comes attached to a body, but it basically removes the body of whatever you're hitting. Just Tidebindering a Planeswalker and then not having to worry about it is hugely powerful, especially if you're a blue-white control deck that you think you can control most of the rest. That said, you mentioned teamer analyst or aftermath analysts. These analyst decks, they just go over the top of basically everything eventually, and just so much value. And you already see one of the huge ones there, the big drops there on Ben's side, along with the smaller setup cards. So this is a really interesting game. We're deep in it. It looks like 3 cards in the hand of Cliff, a number for Ben. And we'll figure out where he wants to go from here. He's got a huge spread of both cards in his graveyard and in play as well. So we'll see. I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about now, but we're going to resolve this and move on from here.
Yeah, I think we might have walked into a judge call. I didn't even
Okay.
notice that when we were looking at the backup screens. Not sure how long the judge call is going to take. I don't know if you want to stay here, if you want to go back to modern. But in any case, yeah, the teamer analyst deck is an interesting one. It's looks like Ben is shuffling up now. It utilizes Aftermath Analyst, which I don't know if we can maybe get that up on the screen for the lovely viewers at home. It's like a 2 mana 1/3. You get to mill some cards, and then you can sacrifice it to return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now that is very powerful with these Capenna sacrifice lands. There's a couple of different ones, but for all intents and purposes, they ETB, they sack themselves, and you go fetch a basic. So if you play a couple of those and then play an analyst, you get to mill over more lands. It's just this really powerful mana engine, and then the late game you play towards stuff like Virtue of Strength, which
Mhm.
triples all of your basic lands, and then that gives you enough mana to just World Souls Rage your opponent out. But it also has a ton of card advantage. You have Ill-Timed Explosion, which is a card draw engine, and Wrath. You have Memory Deluge, which you can mill over with Aftermath Analyst. So just a lot of stuff going on. And we saw this deck top 8 the Pro Tour and in the hands of Sean Goddard, and a very very powerful deck that a lot of people like.
And there, you're seeing World Souls Rage put onto the battlefield now. Looks like Cliff is probably reading that one, if I had to guess. This deck is incredible, and it's also really neat just to have this archetype. It's almost, I don't want to call it combo or ramp, but it is a sort of a unique archetype, and you don't get that a ton in Standard, right? Standard is often mid-range soup, as we would put it. Esper mid versus Grixis mid, and that's sort of the do you play black in your deck or do you play a different color? That was kind of sometimes how these things go. But this standard has very unique decks, and this is possibly the most unique of all of them. You laid out some of its cool interactions, and then it ends in a giant World Souls Rage. It's very nearly a look. If you called Aftermath Analyst channel, you wouldn't be terribly far off in practice.
Aftermath channelist.
There you go. Aftermath channelist. We're there you go, Devin. We're off and running for the day. I'm in.
Yeah, folks in chat don't clip that. But what's cool about World Souls Rage 2 is yes, it is a win condition, but it's also just like because you want to put the fetch lands into your graveyard, it can also just be kill your creature plus ramp a couple. Like you're seeing
Mhm.
here, Ben cast a 4 mana Rage, dealt 2 to a Tidebinder, put 2 lands into play. That's still more Nissa triggers. The fetch lands trigger Nissa again. And it's just very, very cool that this deck has a lot of top end, but in a lot of spots, the top end is also good in the mid game. So it's very flexible, which you don't usually see out of a ramp deck like this.
Yeah. And the incidental life gain in this deck too is not irrelevant when there's mono red and Boros aggro floating around.
Yeah.
Really, really neat example of what's possible in standard. Of course, this is big standard, right? We didn't have a rotation last year. They've changed it to be a 3-year rotation on standard. So this is the largest standard format we've had in who knows how many years, right? I don't even know, maybe ever, without pulling out the history book. But there's a lot possible in very different archetypes. Having covered the regional championships over the last few weeks, we've had multiple tournaments where it's just 6 different archetypes in the top 8, and it's a different 6 archetypes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we saw that at the Pro Tour too. I believe the Pro Tour had I think it might have been
With 6, yeah.
6, yeah, 6. Yeah, okay. So a lot of different decks that people are playing. And look at how many lanes. Ben's got a lot of lanes over there. The landlord himself. We're looking for some tokens.
All right, he's got a whole box of tokens. Good work. That might be the tables, but this is what we like to see: proper token representation on the board, so we all know what we're looking at.
Yeah, and that's a good point you mentioned. I can't really, and I've been playing Magic for a long time. I can't really remember a standard format that was a 3-year rotation. I think it, at least from as far as I've been playing, I don't remember it, but I'm pretty sure it's mostly only been 2 years.
Yeah,
So,
there was a hot minute where they changed it to a 1-year rotation,
yeah,
and they rotated twice a year. That was a very interesting time period that did not last very long. I don't know if people loved it, but look, I have covered a lot of Esper mid range tournaments. So to see Esper mid range be the most popular deck at the last tournament and then do very poorly as a whole, I was thrilled by because it means one, it's great to not just have mid range soup be good, but it also means that the format was such that players didn't solve it because the most popular deck was not the best deck by even not even close.
right. Yeah,
All right,
Esper.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say Esper had not the best weekend. It did. There was a couple of players that did relatively well with it, but yeah, for sure. As we move along here in this game, so it looks like Ben had that big turn, putting a bunch of lands into play, and now we see Fletcher casting a Jace the Perfected Mind. Looks like we're getting the Phyrexian cast of that. If we can get that one up on the screen, that might be a card that maybe a lot of other players aren't familiar with. But yeah, so you can +1 to give a thing a -3 -0, and then the other abilities you can usually it's here as the win condition where
Mhm.
you play a Jace, maybe say -4, mill them for 12. Sometimes you Otawar your own Jace and then do it again. But it's also just some kind of a card advantage engine, and specifically against the Analyst deck. The Analyst is a deck that puts a lot of cards in the graveyard.
Mhm.
So, there is a good chance that by the time you cast this Jace, not here, of course, but 20 cards in graveyard is not the hardest thing to achieve against this Analyst deck.
Yeah, and then you get upgrade your Visions of Beyond abilities. It's pretty good. We're talking a lot about standard here, but this Jace, by the way, holds a really, really interesting spot in standard because it actually functions as kind of a, as you mentioned, a win condition, but also sort of like this counter piece to say domain decks or other decks. Like just milling people is actually sometimes a viable way to end the game in standard when it's not a full mill deck. But as a piece, Jace has really been effective in that. And I've certainly lost a few times to games I thought I had won, and they just play Jace and mill me, and can't answer that.
Yeah, especially in the Legends decks where they play so many Takanumas,
Hmm.
where it's just sometimes they just go like in the post board games, they just go Jace, mill you for 15, Takanuma, Jace, mill you for 15, and it's just you just die out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
kind of wild.
Yeah. All right. Well, this one, that Titan of Industry, looks like it is getting in there. Cliff is at 5. Looks like life totals are 15 right now for Cliff, 9 for Ben. Mana, you can probably reverse that. It's a lot for Ben.
A lot to a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like
So
the the creature's coming into, I believe, at Cliff's face, and we have a Ganjo's going to go ahead and take care of that Rhino token. The counter that's on the Titan of Industry, I believe, is the shield counter.
Hmm.
Shield counter is kind of a weird wording where you don't actually have to fully destroy or attempt to destroy the creature. It's just any sort of damage that is dealt will remove the shield counter. So you saw that chump block there with the Tidebinder, that will get that shield counter off, and then maybe allow for maybe a get lost or some sort of other sweeper to be able to clean that up later. I guess Sunfall would kill it anyways. And looking at Fletcher's hand, I think, or sorry, looking at Cliff's hand rather,
Huh?
I think I see just a counter spell and a land in hand. So not a lot going on for Cliff.
Yeah, not exactly where he wants to be. He does have Jace at least for one. I think he maybe activated it here. So, yeah, not a ton of options for Cliff. Is already down a game to Ben Weinberg and is in basically dead at any point to World Soul's Rage if you don't have an answer to that at this point. So, definitely getting pretty close. Look at this though. Instead, fires up the creature lands and turns them sideways.
I mean, Ben's at 9. That's an attack for 5. That's more than
Wow.
half of Ben's life.
Are these map
So
tokens? Yeah, we get map tokens off of these as well. That those anchorage. So okay, if Cliff can survive this hit, he's got
yeah,
Ben down to 4.
and notably, Cliff is at 10. This would normally be an attack for 10, but Chase, I believe, shrunk that Titan for 3. So this is only an
Did
attack for
activate.
7.
Yep.
So Cliff has just decided, you know what? My hand sucks. We're just gonna go ahead and try and race.
Well, if this works, what a play, right? Like what a
Yeah.
line to see as a blue white player. You go on the beatdown when all else looks lost. Uh yeah, I don't know if Ben just like took some poke damage this game, or if this has been sort of the from turn one, Cliff was like, I'm gonna get you down to 0 with these lands because we had already seen a counter on one of them. So this is a fascinating way for this game to end. We're setting up for a very nice ending, one way or the other.
Now, Ben's hand right now is a blank. There's a land and a gate. Now, Nissa has a trigger. When you landfall for the second time, you flip until you hit an elf or an elemental. Ben, it needs to hit an analyst and not another Nissa. If it's another Nissa, the game's over. If it's an analyst, we're going to gain a bunch of life. Let's see what we hit. That's another Nissa.
Nissa. Okay.
So, to the best of my knowledge, I believe that is going to be Cliff taking game 2, unless maybe Cliff just for some reason decides not to go for the creature lands. But yeah, even I believe Ben had gained a life off of the land, putting Ben up to 5. But even if Cliff misses on the map tokens on the anchorages, it's still 5 damage. So
Right.
regardless, and I mean, if Cliff went for it last turn, you got to imagine we're going to go for it this turn.
Oh yeah, no more no more lies sitting in hand is not helping at this part in the game, and neither was that last card we drew. So there we go, double activate on the anchorages. I think the last card, for what it's worth, might have been Rest in Peace. So that'd be pretty good if you can find it in game 3, but you may not need it here. Turn the land sideways. What is this?
Oh, oh, I missed that. Oh, that's Turn the Earth. I forgot that that card
All
gains
right.
life, and
Earn the Earth. Yeah, let's put that one up on screen. I'm not
oh
familiar
my
with that one
goodness.
either.
It's
But
possible that Cliff might have missed this. So you turn the Earth as you choose 3 cards in the graveyards. The owner of this card shuffle them, and you gain 2 life. Oh my goodness. What a crazy finish there. So I believe that was Cliff conceding because Ben
yeah.
would just cast the Turn the Earth and then untap and attack. What a wild finish there, Corbin.
It sure was. Good for Ben. Fooled us, fooled his opponent. None of us knew that thing was sitting in the graveyard. It must have been there before we came in, or we missed it getting milled. But either way, what an ending. Ben Weinberg taking it down 2-0 in the first sheet. Of course, Fletcher Johnson did the same in the second seat with 5-color Omnath, taking down Amulet Titan out of Adam Washburn Moses. And that leaves us here in game 3. Boros Heroic from Don Delozier versus Ben Ungers. Is it Phoenix? Couple creatures in play right now for Don, and it looks like we came into this game with Ben on a scant 1 life.
Yeah, this looks a lot similar to the game that we watched before, Corbin, where it's just creatures attacking into the red zone, Dawn maybe not needing to cast a lot of spells, and Ben just kind of biding his time here. And yeah, Ben on 1 life here. Excuse
Okay,
me.
well, here we go. This is not bad. Young Pyromancer is definitely a way. We talked about that game before where it didn't matter what removal spells Ben had no pressure. Well, now Pyromancer both gives you pressure as well as a win condition in the late game. But here we go. The Lightning Axe on the Slick Shot Show Off is going to get countered, but then a Spell Pierce fights right back. And like that, another token goes down, and the Lightning Axe takes out Slick Shot Show Off. Don
Yeah, that was
Delozier might not have a way to deal 1 point of damage. It looks like no cards in hand and just the Monastery Swift Spear.
Well, never mind. That's a
Oh!
God's willing off the top.
What an amazing ending. God's willing off the top. A crazy play there by
Ooh.
Ben Unger to get back in the game. Don DeLozier finds the God's willing. That, of course, gives protection to the Swift Spear. That will end the game and end the match in favor of the Weinberg Washburn Moses DeLozier team.
Yeah, that was a wild finish for honestly both of those matches. We saw the blue white control game where Cliff almost was able to turn the tides on that game, and then we also saw that last match. It looks like I believe we are potentially lining up a possible interview. We'll see if we can get more information on that and see if we have players in the booth. But Corbin, that was one heck of a round.
It was. I got to say, team events are great. We're popping into the booth here with this round. We're going to be here with you for the rest of the day at NRG Indy. But that was so fun to just pop back and forth. You see every format, all the cards. Some of the cards span formats. It's fun. It's fun. It's a mix of new and old.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to think about with that specifically that the blue white control game. There was just a lot of different things where Cliff looked like we were able to turn the corner and start attacking with those creature lands, and had the Ben had that turn the earth, and
Yeah.
there's so much going on there. Just an amazing match. And the slick shot show off that card looked very good in the Pioneer match as well. That was a very good showing for that card, and just a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, been a great tournament so far. We'll see if we can get a winner interview from somebody on that team. But this has been the team events with Standard, Pioneer, Modern. All three formats are in, I think, what is a very fun place to watch for the viewing experience, right? Like we watched an Amulet Titan game that came down to basically not amulets and not titans, right? Those were answered. It was came down to whether the other things were going to be good enough. And then we saw that turn the earth, a complete shock out of the graveyard to swing an entire match. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting play I think going on in all three of these formats, and a lot of really great teams here at the NRG putting on a show.
Yeah, looks like okay, we're taking a look at the area. I believe we may have an interview lined up for you here in just a moment. And we have an interview with Don DeLozier. So, Don, congratulations on the victory there.
Mhm,
That we watched a little bit of the game, I think it was game 2,
mhm.
where Ben was missing a bunch of land drops. Talk to me about that game because you had a couple of spells in your hand that you just kind of didn't really need to cast because Ben didn't have any pressure going on.
Yeah, usually what you're trying to do in these like fair matchups when you're playing heroic, it's a weird deck so people aren't familiar with it. You're kind of just playing like mediocre creatures and then saying like, hey, you're gonna waste mana every turn. I'm gonna keep dealing damage to you. Eventually, we're gonna have some fight, and then I have a bunch of like really cheap protection or pump spells in my hand that are gonna stop whatever you're doing. So then you're playing this game of like their life total keeps getting lower. Eventually, you have a fight, and you're probably gonna win, which is what happened there.
It was really fun to watch. Yeah, honestly, the you seem like you have, despite playing the aggro deck, feels like you're almost in control when you're sitting behind those protection spells, and then you get you also have some games where you just win with them at the end, right? Like at that last game.
Yeah, you just established control early. You're just a highly proactive deck, so you're just like getting a big board state and just like locking it into place. It's like obviously it's a little bit different just because the format is different, but
Mhm.
it's like similar to like Legacy Delver or something like that, where like Wasteland is fairly analogous to like God's Willing here, where it's just like it's something to freeze the game in the state
Yeah.
where 1 and 2 drops are gonna kill him.
Well, that was great. Talk about, if you don't mind, Slick Shot Show Off. How's that been for you this weekend?
So I played an RCQ right after that card released, and then I like made a big tweet where I just like spread out all my cards and I put the Slickshot Show Offs above them, and then I said that I won an RCQ with 4 copies of Slickshot Show Off and 56 other cards. It's absurd for the deck. Like basically for because I've been playing this deck for a while. It's not good, but I've been playing it anyway. No, like I was playing it for a while before this, and the one thing I wanted was like I really wish I could have like another like really quality 2-drop, maybe something like with haste. Like I was kind of wanting like extra copies of Monastery Swiss Spear. I was just really wanting something like evasive or something like that. And then the other thing that I always wanted was like some possible way that you could like spend mana for a card but not actually have it on the field yet.
Yeah.
And then they did that. They gave me everything I wanted. And then I started killing people with it. It's great.
Yeah, I've been playing quite a bit of this heroic deck, and it is surprising to me how well. I guess it shouldn't be surprising to me, but it's surprising how much the plot matters in this deck more than basically any of the other slick shot decks because there's so many protection spells. And we've even seen some of the Gruul decks kind of adapt that sort of strategy as well. They're playing Blossoming Defense now, and that's sort of they're kind of taking a page out of Heroic's book, and that card has just been amazing. And I think that card is a huge addition to this deck. The other card that I see on your deck list here is 2 copies of Dreadhorde Arcanist. Now, if I recall correctly, I don't believe that was in previous lists, so talk to me about that card.
Well, it was in previous lists. It just got cut for a while, just in favor of the slick shot. People were trying out a bunch of different creature packages. Uh, it it's one of these like highly meta dependent things basically where you're generally going to have like 3 different types of matchups. You have like the ones where you're actively racing and like contesting on the board. You have the ones where you kill them, so like Lotus Field or something like that, and then you have the fair matchups. Basically, Dreadhorde is significantly better in the actually racing on board matchups than anything else, largely just because you can flashback protection spells, and also because it allows you to like have additional copies of your best pump spell, and that usually makes it so that when you actually go for your big turn, which is usually how you're winning those matchups, it just makes that big turn that much better because you're flashing back your best protection or your best pump spell, and they probably die. Because of it. Basically, this is not a thing that should be correct before people were like playing large numbers of Slickshot show off. However, now that there's like the rise of those kinds of matchups, you kind of have to rebuild the deck to have more game against them. And Dreadhorde Arcanist is basically exactly what you're looking for.
Well, that is an excellent breakdown of the deck for everybody looking at home, looking to get a heads up. Don, this has been a great run so far. Congrats to you thus far, and we'll continue to see you play throughout the day. So thank you for taking the time with us, and good luck.
Of course, once we win the event, I have Illuminator Virtuoso Magic the Gathering fan fiction that I'm going to post on twitter.com. It's going to be called the Boros Heroic Deck Guide. It's going to be great. Everybody should be very excited for it. All right, goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Love to see it.
Yeah, that was great. Love that. So this is an awesome deck, awesome player, awesome team. This has been an awesome weekend thus far here at the NRG Championship Series, and we are going to get ready. Maybe take a short break here, and then we will be heading into another match for you here on the other side.